Now that you've had this time to sit back and relax and take in all what the fans have said, I mean, what was your experience like just briefly working on that third season?
I think I didn't realize how involved the fan base is, especially season three. I feel like the show really blew up. And so I feel like filming it felt like one experience, and now the release of it and, interacting with the audience is a completely different experience. And so it's almost like you live through it twice. So it's been so fulfilling to be on a show that you love to make, and then you release it, and then people love to watch it. So it's a double win.
I'm curious to know, I want to go back a little bit. Like when you first were approached about this show, and a show like this has to be really tight with its scripts and what's going on. What information were you given at all, if any, about this character?
Oh gosh, very little. Like I was just in the audition breakdown. It was just rookie police officer in over her head from Maine. That was it. And you can look at it, it's like glass half full, glass half empty type of perspective. You can look at that and say, well, I don't have any information. What am I supposed to do with this? Or you can flip your perspective and say, well, now I can kind of paint this canvas the way that I want.
Right.
And throw a bunch of choices out there and then have them sort of guide me on the path that they want. So it was actually very freeing with the lack of information to sort of go in blind and just kind of carve out this character together with the team. So I actually really enjoyed it.
So you did have a little bit of input when it came to the direction of his character in this.
Well, I think in terms of like bringing your own energy of what you want the
Sure.
character to be, right? Like the cadence at which you speak and like choices that you make as an actor when you're delivering the lines, right? Like you bring life. It's like she has a badge and we know what that means, but like it's my job. What is this person behind the badge? Who is this person when she goes home at night? What does her life look like? And so it's my job to build that. And then if I show up to work and they're like, no, that's trash, don't do that. You're like, oh, okay, I'll just pivot and go this way. So yeah, it's been a really dynamic experience.
For you as an actor, what was it like knowing you were going to come into a show like this and immediately cause chaos on the show?
Okay, so this is a great question. So I knew because it was in the audition scene where it gets accepted into Colony House and Donna's calming her down and she just shot someone. So I knew that I killed someone, and I was hoping that it wasn't, a fan favorite because I was like, she'll never be able to recover from that. And like, Nikki, we are all going to miss Nikki, but I just didn't know how that would go over. And then episode 5, when Acosta goes into the sheriff's station and is trying to, she's showing remorse and is feeling really guilty, and she's trying to sort of strategize with Boyd, and he just shuts her down. I was like, well, what's going to happen to her now? Because we just get the episodes a couple days before we start shooting that block. And so when I got episode 7 and I'm reading that she's, ransacking the sheriff's station and kind of talking smack to Boyd, I was like, oh, okay, I see where they're taking her. So that was definitely a surprise as well.
You mentioned Boyd. Acosta and Boyd have obviously butted heads since day one. Can you talk about that relationship and for you, what it's like working with Harold? Because Harold's one of my favorite actors on the planet.
Yes, I agree. I feel the same way. And I think they met at a terrible time. And I think what's interesting about them is they obviously don't like each other right now, but I actually think they would work really well together.
That was going to be my next question.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, like I see, I'll get some DMs from people talking about Acosta and the character, and they're like, you're so similar to Boyd, even though you hate each other. And so I think that they could be a really good team and balance each other. I just don't know if they'll be able to set those differences aside, because so much has happened between them right now this season where they really don't see eye to eye. But I think if they met at a better time, they would be like a great team. And working with Harold, to your next question, it's been a blast. I have worked with a lot of actors who they'll give like 100% on their coverage. And then when the camera flips on your coverage, they give just enough because they're not on camera. And that's okay. That's the way that they work. But Harold will give the exact same, if not more, when he's not on camera. It's just, he's such a selfless actor. He's a true collaborator. And the show would not be, in my opinion, what it is today without him at the helm of it. Absolutely not.
When I was talking to Harold, he mentioned the scene, one of my favorite scenes from the third season, is when your character walked in and basically said, I want my gun. And you got up in his face. He said that wasn't scripted, that you did that on your own.
Right. This is actually the first time I'm going to talk about this because I've always talked about that scene in interviews from the perspective of Acosta, the character. I've never talked about it as an actor. I had such a difficult time with that scene because the content of the scene I loved. It's always nice to kind of be a little bit, chaotic and talk a little bit of smack. But I didn't know what to do at the end of that scene because it kept saying, in the script, it was she wants her gun and he's saying no. And then they're going back and forth. And then there's no stage direction. It just said at the very end of the scene, she just says one final time, I want my gun or give
Yeah.
me my gun. And he complies. And so I said, well, why is he now complying? Like, how is she going to win the scene or at least win 50% of it, right? Because she does get her gun, but she doesn't get her bullets. And so I thought, I have to do something different on that line to justify Boyd now sort of changing his mind. And so I thought, what can I do? And I said, well, I don't want to yell because that's going to look like she's emotional and unhinged. And I want her to be like cool and calm and logical. I thought, can I use a prop? And it took days. I was trying to figure out that one freaking line. And then I thought, well, what can convey like I'm not backing down, I'm here to stay, you cannot mess with me, you are not the boss of me? And I thought, getting in someone's face. So I wasn't thinking of the likable choice. I just thought, like, what can I do physically to convey that? And so when he said, get the fuck out, I think it was, and walked away, I was like, perfect. And so I just crept right up behind him. But I had no idea that one moment would sort of blow up from the audience's perspective.
Oh
But
yeah, because even I was like, damn.
I know, I know. I just honestly, that choice, I couldn't think of any other choice because I think, looking back now, how ridiculous would it be if he walked away and then I was still staying in the same spot, just saying, give me my gun. I'd be like, get out of here, little girl, right? So, and then even like swinging on the door frame on the way out, I just did that in the moment because I thought, how can I disrespect him just one more time because I feel like he's disrespected me. So no, it's not mature. But I just thought that it was an interesting choice. So
Yeah, even he said you made him jump back a little bit because he didn't expect it.
yeah. It worked though,
Oh
she
yeah,
got her gun, but yeah, so that's a little insight there.
it's a very memorable scene. So kudos to you for making that choice. It was, again,
Yeah.
I was in a house full of people watching that episode, and we all were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, one of the people that Costa really is not a big fan of is Sarah. And
Right.
after what happened in season 3 with Elgin, what Sarah did to Elgin, I mean, what does Acosta think of Sarah right now? I mean, she thinks he's got to get rid of her. I mean, what is going through her mind?
Right. Well, I wouldn't go so far to say Acosta doesn't like Sarah just because
Okay,
she hasn't interacted with her. But I would say that, Acosta, it's really important that, like, I feel like sometimes the audience forgets how long it's actually been in the world of the show.
it's only been like 4 or 5 days for you, right?
Yeah. So Acosta has only been there like a handful of days. And so, we don't see any interaction with Sarah on camera. So I'm assuming they haven't interacted with each other. And all she has heard is that this woman has murdered multiple people. And so Acosta is still coming from the real world of there's right and there's wrong. There's moral and immoral. And when you're just nonchalantly telling me that this woman is, murdered people and murdered this man's father who's, standing beside me, that's, very shocking. And then you can argue Acosta has also murdered someone, but as we've all seen, that was an accident. So
Yep.
Acosta's thinking, did this woman intentionally murder people? Like, she just needs more information. And then when she sees obviously the torture going on, that's not okay in her book at all. Because now everyone's going to start turning on each other because the entity wants us to kill each other before it kills us. So if we start torturing people now and turning against each other, there is no hope for survival in her mind. But in terms of the box and stuff like that, like, I don't think Acosta is going to be on board with the box at all.
Yeah.
But I think she definitely would want to talk to Sarah, just like, hey, what's going on?
So I
What do
hear
you
you hear voices. So what's that all about?
yeah. So, yeah, I'm interested to see, like, another thing that I'm excited about going forward for Acosta is there's so many people in the town that she hasn't interacted with yet,
Exactly.
right? Like,
Exactly.
what is her relationship with Sarah going to look like? Randall, I don't know why, but I really think that a Randall Acosta exchange could be really interesting to see. So yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to for season 4 is just who she orbits around and how her relationships evolve.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Acosta internalizes a lot of her emotions in this series. And I think the first time we got to see her, I don't know if you want to say explode a little bit, was when she was in the diner with Kenny and she got to let out a little bit of that frustration. Would you agree with that?
I would so agree with that. I love you for saying that. I would say that that scene in the diner, the way that it played out, and I love that scene is because, Acosta entered this world and, 2 days prior, I assume they're her friends because Camden, Maine is a very small town. And so I assume she knows these EMTs.
Hmm.
And so to see two of your friends get brutally murdered in front of you, and then you turned around and accidentally took someone else's life, that just gives me goosebumps even thinking about
Yeah.
what that would feel like. That would take years of therapy. I don't even think you could ever work through that, to be honest. And that happened 2 days ago. And so when she's in the diner and she's trying to get information, and Kenny is, I understand from his perspective, kind of saying like, we've tried, like just
We've
chill.
done
There's
this. Yeah.
nothing you can do. I think that's the first time when she sort of explodes at the end. It's such a mix of, guilt and remorse and anger and sadness, and she's scared. And then to propel her going into the sheriff's station, like she wants her gun. But I was playing it as so much more than that. Like I thought, here she's thinking that, Kenny's telling me that both of his parents have died here, right? And so as sad as that is, and she feels terrible and offers her condolences, I think that it then turns to anger, and she's like, who's in charge here?
Yeah.
Like your parents, that, like, what's
Yeah.
going on here? And so the audience knows what Boyd has done to protect these people, but from her perspective, things are out of control.
Yeah.
And I would imagine a police officer doesn't ever want to feel out of control. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good clock of that scene.
Speaking of the diner, and I know this was probably written in the script, but it probably said there's going to be a song playing on the jukebox. Did you know it was going to be that particular song?
No, I had no idea. It was just, you have to interrupt yourself on the day when you're filming it. And when I saw it, I died. It's the perfect song choice. It enrages me, which is the point. But yeah, every song they've picked for the jukebox has just been chef's kiss.
So a lot of fans are thinking, speaking of Kenny in the diner, that Acosta and Kenny may try to form this thing where she gets Kenny to kind of overthrow Boyd or knock Boyd out of his position. A lot of fans are talking about that. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that, for Acosta to immediately take over would be tough because she doesn't know anything about the town. I see that as like a Kenny sort of situation, but
Sorry.
Yeah, like yeah. But no, I think she would be more on more on board with Kenny being the leader for now,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Boyd for sure. And I think Acosta is one of those people that no matter what, she's always going to want to be involved in the decision making. That's just, we see it, like that's just in her DNA. I think there are some people in the town who put their trust in Boyd and say, okay, whatever Boyd decides, he's got our best interest. I trust his decision and I'm okay. I think Acosta would never allow anyone to sort of make a decision on her behalf without her knowing like the full process behind that. So I think she would want to be involved in that way. How that happens, I don't know.
Being the TV nerds that all of us are who watch this show, and everything's a conspiracy. It was interesting. I was talking to some friends of mine, and as soon as your character came on the show, there's two conspiracies about your character's name, and I know you've talked about this a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a misunderstanding with about your character's first name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes. I had an interview where so there was a scene with Ricky and I, and the scene got cut, and it was when I tell him that my name is Danny. And it got cut. And I don't know the reason that it got cut. It could be for time, like a lot of stuff gets cut. And so I just said, okay, well, if I'm asked this in an interview, I can't speak on anything that's not in the final production of the show. And so I just said like, yeah, it hasn't been revealed yet. And then people took that and they were like, oh, it hasn't been.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, see, I'm learning. But I didn't even cheekily say it. I was just like, yeah, like it hasn't been revealed yet, right? So yeah, but again, like I don't know. Anything with this show is possible, but That's what that was.
And then the meaning of your character's last name. Did you do any kind of research on her last name, and what did you do about the conspiracies and your thoughts about that last name?
Yeah, so you mean like the on the coast sort of.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I did. Like the second that I found out that that was her name, I did a lot of research there. I didn't put too much weight on it because again, you never know, but I do think like, Acosta is not a name that I hear often.
No.
Um, right? So I don't know if, did John just like pick that out of thin air or like is there something a little bit more behind that? But again, with the show, you never know. But it didn't inform my performance in any way. But again, it's like the biggest mystery to me is like, is everyone sort of reincarnated, or is everyone there for a reason, or are some people just collateral damage? Like, did Acosta just get stuck here by accident? And there's no connection to this town. So I don't know if everyone is there for a reason or not.
I'm curious about your thoughts about this. One of the biggest gripes from fans that I've seen is like these people don't talk to each other enough. They need to have more meetings and with the townspeople. And I'm like, you got to keep the information to a certain group of people because what happened when they had a town meeting? Dale decided to go in the faraway tree, and we saw what
Right.
happened to him. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that, yeah, I agree that you can't tell everyone everything all the time. That wouldn't be a good strategy. But I do think that Boyd isn't telling enough people things.
Okay.
And I think maybe that blow up in the diner also happened because people feel so starved for
Right.
information. So I think maybe if there's like a strategy of, you don't tell everybody 100% of everything. Maybe you have like a think tank council, right? And I think that's what she would want. It's sort of like more of a democratic setup where the top leaders in the town, whoever is elected, they know the information, and then you kind of spoon feed to the rest of the town so they feel like they're involved in some way. But I do think a lot of that town meeting was built up frustration of just never knowing anything and always being in the dark.
Speaking of that pool scene with Dale, I was like, okay, whoever thought of that is just insane.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
sent John a message. I said, dude, whoever thought of that scene needs a hug. And he's like, I've been wanting to do that since season one.
Oh, really? Wow. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. It was, and the way that
Oh,
it is, because you read it in the script and you imagine it a certain way. And then when you see, it's happened a lot on the show, actually. Like you read the script and your imagination goes wild of what it will look like. And then every single time when I watch the final edit, I'm like, wow, it surpassed my wildest imagination of that. So it was shot very well.
but you as an actor on a show like this, when you get the scripts, do you go, okay, please God, let me still be in the show. Please don't, because anyone can be gone at any time on this show.
Very true. I've heard that you get a call before the scripts are released if you're going to die. So I'm more so just when I know that the scripts are coming out, I'm just like shutting my phone off. Like if you can't kill me if I don't answer, right? No, but I'm also not one of those actors. I know some people will get a script and they immediately like command F their character name to see what's going on with them. I don't work like that. I just maybe because I'm such a fan of the show, I just read the script from top to bottom as a fan, as a viewer from that perspective. And then what Acosta is doing will come up as I read it. And then on my second time around, I'm looking at it through the lens of my character.
I know this might be a corny question because everyone asks this, but for you, Samantha, if you were ended up in that town, would you stay in Colony House or would you stay in the town?
I
Because
would be
I would stay in town.
I would be in town. I'm sleeping at, I joked to Harold about this. I was like, I said this a while ago to him. It was like, yeah, season 4 is going to open and Acosta's going to have a sleeping bag, like sleeping in the sheriff station. Like he's going to wake up one morning, like, what is this girl doing? I would be in the sheriff station. I would be sleeping in town. Absolutely no way. There's too much liability in Colony House. There's too many
Thank
people,
you.
too many mistakes. Yeah. And I just like my space. I like my alone time.
Brum has one of the most loyal fan bases, as you already know, that I've seen. I haven't seen a fan base like this since Lost. I don't know if you ever watched Lost.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
What's it like for you being a part of this? I mean, you touched on it earlier, but what is it like you being in this mix with this fan base now, this loyal fan base?
Yes, this is unlike anything I've ever experienced in terms of like fan engagement. And I'm so proud of everyone that's been on this show from the beginning. You know, this show has taken years to get off the ground. I'm new. And so all the work that everyone has put in front of and behind the camera to get this show, it's like, yeah, you get season one of a show, but then to get season two, a season three, and a season four in this entertainment landscape is almost near impossible. And so much of that is the fans and the audience. It's like every single view counts. So I know some of the cast do like they tweet on Sunday nights,
Hmm.
and so much interaction between the cast and the audience that I really think helps the show continue on. So it's like we couldn't do it without the audience.
What do you say to fans who say, okay, they're not giving us answers quick enough, it's taking too long? What do you say to fans like that who don't have? Because I told them this is a big picture show. You got to
Yes.
look at the big
Well
picture.
said. Yeah, yeah. This is a big picture show. I think after you watch the finale of season three, if you still don't think you have answers, you need to get some glasses and you need to watch. But I think too, what I love about the show is it's not on the nose. Like it's not obvious. It's not in your face. Like there are so many answers. They're just not being spoon fed to you. Where it's like some people say a lot of people in the town don't communicate things, but you can see in the dialogue if you really pay attention, characters are behind the scenes talking to
Yes,
each other. They're
yes.
just not on camera, but some people may miss that because they're just watching it from the surface saying, well, those two characters haven't talked about it yet. But you know that they have. You've seen that happen in dialogue. Like even when Acosta goes into the station, the sheriff's station, she's talking to Boyd and she says, I heard you've been doing a pretty shit job lately. Like that implies Acosta has
They've
been
been
out
talking to people. Exactly.
talking to, because people are like, well, she hasn't asked anybody. It's like, of course she has. That's where she's getting that information. So yeah, I think there's been a ton of answers, especially this season. And you just have to look harder. Just keep rewatching.
See, and there, that was my next point. I have a lot of people that I've told just go back and rewatch. You're going to see little nuggets drop throughout the first couple of seasons, and they're like, "Oh my God, I see
Yeah,
what you're talking about." And
for sure.
this is you got to pay attention to. This is a
Yeah.
rewatch show.
Yeah, yeah, but that's fun too, and I love that they're releasing MGM the episodes, or they have released them once a week. I really
Yes,
that adds to people can rewatch throughout the week and talk to their friends about it and jump online and theorize, and that really helps people see. Like I've read some things online, and then I go back and rewatch, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So I like the slow release. I think it adds to the like puzzle box vibes of the show.
and I think my final question for you. Now, obviously, there are no scripts written yet, even though some people think there's leaks of the first the 10 episodes, which is
Oh, I can tell you, no, that's
yes,
not.
yeah, I know, I know.
Yeah,
Someone wants clicks. But
yeah.
if you had the opportunity to sit with John, where would you like to see this character go, Acosta go in season four, if you could have any input at all?
That's a really good question. I think I'd want her. I really like playing characters with a strong point of view.
Hmm.
I think the way my process works is I love every character I play. I have to. Otherwise, I couldn't do it justice. So, like, I love Acosta. I ride for Acosta. I'm the president of the Acosta fan club. Okay. I'm her number one fan. But I don't have to agree with everything that Acosta says and does in the show. So I'm never looking at a script like, that's not likable. I don't think she should do that. I'm never thinking that. But what I do like is a character that has conviction and a point of view and wants to be in the mix and figuring things out. So and I think she will be a part of that. So whether that's figuring things out with Boyd and they put their differences aside and work together, they're stronger together, or, she does her own thing and kind of tries to figure out things on her own path. But I think as long as she's actively trying to figure this out and get home and is not just, hanging out at Colony House, I'm fine with whatever they write for the character.
What I love about this character is like I have some friends who just despise the character.
Yeah.
I have friends who feel sorry for the character, have sympathy for the character. So it's interesting to have us all talk about the Acosta character. I think
Yeah, and I think she is definitely polarizing, right? Like even when I'm reading episode 7 and her conversation with Boyd, I'm reading it like no one is reading that thinking, "Wow, people are gonna love her," like But I think You really have to let characters marinate, right? Like she is so new to this entire thing. And I always attribute it to like a chef. Like if a chef's cooking sauce and the chef's not done and someone comes by and just like tastes the sauce and they're like, it's too sour or it's too sweet. It's like, well, I'm not done cooking the sauce. I have other ingredients that I'm putting in this sauce. And when it is done, you can taste it at the end. So I think there's so much more that we can see and learn about Acosta. So just be patient. Let her marinate and cook the Acosta sauce.